So without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to warmly welcome our speaker for today, Neelam Harjani. She's a recognized leader in corporate well-being and the founder of Inspire Wellness. With more than 20 years of experience, including her early career as an investment banker, Neelam brings both corporate insight and deep expertise into helping individuals and organizations thrive in high-pressure environments. Through her work, she blends mindfulness, lifestyle medicine, and emotional intelligence to create powerful well-being programs that strengthen engagement, improve performance, and build healthier workplace cultures. Her work today supports organizations across industries globally who are committed to sustainable success. It gives me great pleasure once again. Neelam, we're delighted to have you with us today. The virtual stage is yours. Neelam.
Thank you so much, Gautam, and a warm welcome to everyone here. Thank you for taking the time. I know it's a critical time in Dubai at the moment, so just being here, showing up, really shows the commitment you have in terms of what you're creating within your companies. So I'll just share my slides so we can take it from there. Give me 1 second. All right. Yeah, as Gautam very kindly introduced, I used to be an investment banker. I personally burnt out. It affected my health. It affected my relationships. And that's when, wellness and well-being, psychological safety, creating value alignment in cultures became a big relevance to me, And so taking that, wanting to really put strength behind the techniques and the tools, rather than just a nice to have. I graduated from Harvard Medical School as a wellness coach. I graduated from MIT for a leadership presence and really creating the dots to how we can sculpt corporate cultures in a way where we can be pragmatic, but it's also research-backed and scientifically proven. And so ironically, as life has it, I'm actually back in the banks. I service high pressure environments, whether it's in finance, insurance, real estate, government, to be able to really understand what is it that are the clear levers that we need to press in order to make the biggest difference in our people and in galvanizing teams, especially at such a critical juncture. So what is culture? A new team, imagine a new team getting together and, so the leader says, let's all go out for dinner. So they go out for dinner, and they're coming from diverse backgrounds, right? So the German comes up exactly on time. Then there's Indian representation, Japanese, British, Mexican, with an Arabic leader. And so think about how all of them would appropriate to a dinner, a social get together. Everyone left feeling a little bit peeved. Why? Because they come with their own cultural lens. Okay, so for example, within Indian culture, it's we see food as sacred. So food wasting is not part of our culture. Whereas with the Arab boss, it's all about abundance and making sure there's always more on the table. So you can see there's a conflict here. The Germans like to be exactly on time because it's polite to show they respect the host's time. In Mexican culture, giving the host being 15 minutes late is polite to the host because if they have to tie up some loose ends, they're not pressured. Japanese culture, when you eat, it's very important to make lots of sounds in your chewing to express how much you're enjoying the food. In British culture, eating silently is polite in terms of showing respect to the host. So you can see everyone comes with their different lens. And yet, even though they're all well-intentioned, there are conflicts of interest here. So in terms of an organization, when we are dealing with cross-cultural talent, how it becomes even more critical to align values based on the cultures, the values, the virtues of that organization, rather than letting the background of each individual color their lens, right? So I know you guys are experts here. I'm speaking to a crowd of HR leaders in your own right. So, all right, I've put in my 5 key fundamentals in terms of what demonstrates culture and how we can really create culture using these 5 elements. Any guesses? So it's COLIT is the acronym. So starting with C, what could C be? Feel free to use the chat. I want to make this as interactive. We all have Zoom fatigue at the moment with our meetings online. So let's have a bit of fun. Let's really feel that we're coming together here. Any ideas? What could C be? Okay. Yeah, okay, beautiful. I got some nice care, connection, collaboration, commitment, super. Clarity, excellent. Okay, excellent. So remember, uh, these are the stepping stones, the building blocks for culture. What we're describing is the outcomes of healthy, thriving culture. We want clarity, we want collaboration, we want commitment, we want to create a culture of care. But how do we build that? Okay, so let's see what it stands for. So C is communication. How we can build our culture in the cadence of our communication. Is it an organization that has transparent communication? Is feedback frequent? Is it hierarchical? Yeah, excellent. O, let's give it a go. What could O be? Anything that starts with O that you could guess. Any guess is welcome. Oxygen, I love that. Openness. Yes, absolutely. The offer, the organization, absolutely. Observance, super. So in term of, yeah, optimism, so important. Absolutely. And that all connects to O. So O is the organizational values and purpose. So all of it, what you've said, being curious, being compassionate, being organized, being accountable, that all falls under this feeling of the values of the company. Yeah, the purpose. We'll delve into each one of these in more detail, but really creating that feeling where I'm standing for something bigger than just my task list here becomes an intrinsic metric for motivation and for really bringing people together in that sense of belonging and togetherness, especially in times of difficulty and distress that we're experiencing here in the UAE. Oh, sorry, I gave that away. L, leadership. Okay, great. Thanks, Ruthie. 100% to you. Yes. So leadership behavior is L. Exactly. Culture is modeled. It is top down. So having the leadership strategy becomes almost the barometer of how that what is acceptable, what is not, what are the expectations. It all trickles down. It's a top-down approach. Amazing. Any ideas? Inclusion, super. I like that, Raja. Good to know. Inspiration, yes. Yes, absolutely. We want to be inspired. We want to have a workforce that's motivated. Integrity, absolutely. We want that feeling where we're purposeful in our intentions and that translates into actions. Excellent, amazing. So I comes from incentives, right? What behaviors am I rewarding? Is it the effort? Is it the outcome? Is it the confidence? Is it the collaboration? All of that, we're all working with people. The first thing that they want is what's in it for me, right? What am I going to get out of it? So whether it's tangible or intangible, that the reward system of how we can really bring people together and how we can incentivize the behaviors that we want to see. Last one, final role. Amazing. Transparency, team, talent, trust, transformation. Super. Excellent. And you guys, you've got it. Trust. Yes. Excellent. So trust. So bringing this together, COLIT is my easy way of remembering it. Communication style, your organizational values, leadership behavior, incentives, and trust. Trust is so important, especially in this time of uncertainty. The importance of how we show up as leaders, how we're communicating, how people feel that they are being reassured. We're in the midst of a crisis, right? So feeling that I'm in a trusted environment, I know that my leaders are going to take the right steps is paramount at this state. And we can see this, and if there's one model I can take is from the government. Look at what they're doing. They're consistently communicating with us. We know when there's a threat, we know when we're safe. Like it's communicated so openly with that purpose, the value of safety. We want to make sure that we're all coming together here. And so by doing that, by having the leaders take charge, we're really imbibing and embodying that culture of togetherness within the country. And what happens organizationally when we don't have this available? Yeah, toxic, fear-driven cultures can cut individual performance up to 12% in high-pressure environments. Yeah, so the number one reason why people actually resign is not being able to see eye to eye with their direct managers, right? So having that toxic culture trickle down. So what can we do about this? This is not only a nice to have, but it's a business metric. Turnover due to toxicity typically costs 6 to 9 months salary per leaver, right? So we're talking about ROI, we're talking about bottom line, we're talking about the importance of loyalty, job satisfaction, and how that's the onus of the leadership in the organization, in sculpting that culture of the company. So, right now we're in this crisis. We're in a mode where there's so much uncertainty. And so I've been talking to a lot of CEOs and big corporations, and resilience is on, front and is on the priority list, in the front of the priority list, because stress and burnout levels have never been as high as they are today. Only 30% of the workforce is engaged. And so what we want to do is we really want to create empathy and communication. Leadership is not about being in charge, it's about taking care of those in your charge, right? Really coming to this place of compassion, of care, of connection. And so psychological safety is front and center. 27% more likely to report higher performance if you have that basis of trust. If you're in a corporate culture that allows that collaboration, that feeling of care, the integrity, everything, all the outcomes that you named, it's really because I feel safe. I feel that I'm being looked after. And when you're in that position, that's how you show up. You're going to look after your own work. You're going to have that sense of agency and responsibility. And with, HR, we deal with so much between the budget, leadership expectations, employee demands, AI transformation. All of that also comes with a tinge of insecurity. There's such rapid change, there's such uncertainty that there's so much to manage and to balance. So I want to actually set the stage for you. if you can, just scan this QR code, or on your computer, you can go to menti.com and use 16166754 as your code. I have a question that I'd like for us to really reflect on here. So put in your answers in that code. Are we all there? Yeah, excellent. Excellent. So I'll give you a minute more so that everyone gets a chance to answer the poll, so we can show the representation of what is it that we're really facing. Because at the end of the day, the relevance is so important here. Absolutely. Okay, great. And you can see this correlation, between anxiety, that's in the top spot, the sense of rising work expectations, the leaders feeling a little out of sorts. This is an unprecedented time. So making sure that they feel supported in this time as well. Low engagement. Okay, one of the easiest or the first kind of cascading effects of anxiety and job insecurity becomes on motivation, right? When our motivations are running thin, actually, there's a study that when job insecurity is high, we respond. There was a study that 70% of poaching calls are responded to. So where they're so ready to jump to another job or another position. And so what does that tell us in terms of job security? What does that tell us in terms of job satisfaction? We want to really create a culture of loyalty, of performance, and high performance really means this sense of psychological safety. So going back here, let's examine what we can first draw on in anxiety. That was the biggest challenge that we're all facing. So let's actually take that and showcase what does anxiety mean? Anxiety means that our minds are racing, and generally, where are they racing to? Towards the future. What happens in the future? We don't know. So the emotion, the vibration of the future becomes fear. You compound that day over day, week after week, month over month, it becomes chronic stress and anxiety. So here the importance is on self-regulation. Self-regulation, where we're really managing the energy. If we're running on low battery, what's that going to do to our engagement? It's going to drop it. What's that going to do to our motivation? It's going to drop it. What's that going to do to our confidence? It's going to drop it, right? So it's undermining our performance because we're stuck in this space of anxiety, which is why it's not about how hard we push. It's much more about intentional moments of recovery and renewal, taking those moments to pause, to break, to reset. And that has shown a great deal in terms of productivity and performance levels. It increases by about 20 to 30% simply by implementing a simple 5-minute nervous system regulation technique that I teach. And so when employees maintain cycles of stress and recovery, then there's that cycle, right? Then we can gain back that cognitive clarity, that focus, only once we're regulated, only once we can really allow that energy to be managed and that anxiety to be abated. Remember organizational values and purpose. Now in this generation, millennials, Gen Z, it used to be a check was all that I needed to be motivated. Now a lot of us are motivated by impact. We want to feel like we're connecting our work to a cause. So really how the employees operate from that sense of courage rather than a feeling of fear or insecurity, right? So we want to create this feeling, this image of hope that we're building a better future. And all of your efforts are stacking up towards that vision that we're outlining as an organization. And so research has shown that purpose-driven firms are almost 1.5 times more engaged, 64% higher satisfaction levels, 30% higher innovation levels. And think about what that would do in terms of creativity, collaboration, effectiveness in the workplace, right? And not only that, it's the biggest factor for someone to stay in their position. Yeah, so without that attrition, it keeps them 54 times more likely to stay for over 5 years when they're connected not only by their mind, not only by their pocket, but by their heart, and really connecting them to the values of what they're doing and how it makes a difference, especially in this very volatile geopolitical situation. And so a big aspect we spoke on as well was leadership, the gap here in leadership. What I want to say is, if we are experiencing micromanaging, and that's generally a sign of insecurity, even from managers. So it's so important that first the leadership are able to regulate their nervous system, because that is what cascades. If they are feeling tense and panicked and scared, they're not going to be willing to share information. They're not going to be willing to be transparent that, hey, this is a very evolving set of circumstances. I don't know right now. They rather think, I don't want to miscalculate, so I won't say anything. And when we don't communicate at all, we keep our teams locked into that anxiety, because no information means that we're imagining the worst case scenarios, right? That's when that anxiety really builds up. And so when we're able, even as leaders, to have those clear goals and share the ownership, give people autonomy, give them a sense of ownership, then they are that autonomy, that personal leadership increases performance by up to 25%. We want to feel that authenticity come through. We want to feel like we can speak up and ask questions. Remember, that's the basis of psychological safety. We want to also be able to have this cadence of communication. When things are uncertain, as leaders, we need to be able to communicate more frequently. There's a greater impact of feedback. We also want to be able to applaud constructively. And so really having a sense of mutual respect where colleagues are coming together in a ecosystem of support, because that's really the corporate culture that thrives in uncertainty and in performance. So I want to do a little experiment. Okay, everybody ready? I'm going to give you a little challenge here. Okay, you're going to watch a video. I'll give you instructions, but I need your 100% focus, because it's going to get tricky. Ready? Okay, so you're going to watch this video where one cup will have this piece of chocolate hidden, and I want you to be able to track where is the chocolate. Okay, so check this. This is the chocolate, and now it's being hidden by one of the cups. And then the cups are going to be moved around. And I want you to keep an eye on where the chocolate is. Which cup is it? I told you need to focus. Okay, ready? In the chat box, which one is it in? 1, 2, or 3? Left, center, or right? Okay, let's see if you're right. It's going to be revealed now. Not here. Those who said the second one or the middle, you're right. Excellent. It was there. Good job. Now I know you're all super smart and you have great focus. So we're going to make it a little harder. We're adding 2 sets of hands. We're adding 6 more cups. So keep your eye on the chocolate, where the chocolate is hidden, and stay with it. Okay? It's going to move fast. Keep tracking it. Okay. Is it in the left, center, or middle? A bit trickier now, right? Not right, not middle. It's in the left. Who got that right? Great. But what about the other factors? There was a duck that came to visit. Did you notice that? Okay, what else? There were other things that came. Did you see the 5th hand? There was more hands moving there. Okay, maybe the duck, maybe the 5th hand, but did you notice the colors of 3 cups actually changed, starting from blue and then to green? They're a superstar if you notice all 3 of those. Anybody notice all 3 of those? Okay, so exactly. So what this is trying to show you is the importance of selective attention. When we are so focused on one thing, then we're not able to see that there are many different confounding variables. So when it comes to something as delicate as corporate culture, we may be thinking, okay, organizational values, engagement, but being able to see it from a holistic perspective becomes so important. And that's really when well-being is on the priority list. They've tracked companies who've invested in well-being for over a 3-year horizon. And all of those who've invested in well-being have actually outperformed on the NASDAQ. So they've actually outperformed bottom line because their people are looked after, because there's that feeling of this holistic perspective rather than tunnel vision where I'm only going to take one thing at a time. When we're able to see the big picture, we're able to see how things affect other things. And when employees are cared for, that's when they bring their best to work. Increased productivity, increased customer satisfaction, and increased profitability. We know what the dire state of engagement is. So really to be able to shift the marker here requires that holistic perspective. And that holistic perspective, when it comes to architecting a high performance culture, is around a contagion effect. That communication, employee recognition, finding that agility, knowing that, I don't need to have all the answers. I know that I can iterate, have that goal alignment with your values, and show up as leaders who have both empathy and clarity. Because when we're able to do that, we co-regulate. Our nervous systems co-regulate. If one is calm, then we're able to pass on that feeling of calm. Have you ever sat next to a person who was super angry and all of a sudden you were feeling uncomfortable? Of course, these are mirror neurons in our chemistry. And so when we're able to create that chemistry of positivity, then that's what starts to engender a culture of high job satisfaction, of growth mindset, of collaboration, of productivity, of loyalty, innovation, everything that we want to see in our professional and personal lives. So I'm really just honored to be able to share in this space and this time. Feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn. I share many tips. My website is inspirewellness.com. There's free resources there. My ebook is out there. There's a mindfulness course, a movement course. I teach breathwork and meditation. And as I said, being a wellness coach to leadership is something that I'm honored to be able to share and to serve in a time where it's so unprecedented. Feel free to reach out in terms of questions. I'm going to share, give the limelight to Gautam now.
Thank you. Thank you, Neelam. Obviously, we open up the floor for any questions. I have posed one question as a start and then invite others to feel free to share any questions they have. So the opening question I'd like to ask is, obviously many HR leaders are navigating uncertainty, whether geopolitical, business disruption, employee anxiety. From your experience, what is one mindset or practice HR leaders can adopt immediately to help teams stay calm, focused, and resilient through these during these times?
So what I've seen in terms of the companies that I've worked with, the one latest impact has been when we're able to change from negative emotion to positive emotion. And the lever here that does this the most effectively and the fastest is through gratitude. So how do we add this into organizational systems? Simply once a week, have the whole company, all employees write or send out one email, an email of thanks to anyone else in the company. And being able to have almost this cascading effect of gratitude where we're shifting from feeling that fear, feeling that uncertainty, into feeling supported, into feeling acknowledged, into feeling recognized, makes a huge difference around psychological safety and employee engagement.
Great. Thank you. Gratitude is something that I believe should always be a daily practice, irrespective of the times we live in, but even more so now. It's something that I do practice every morning. If there are any other questions, feel free to share them on the chat. It's a good chance to ask Neelam some questions and obviously learn from her experience. We have one from Chetan. Hi, Neelam. Thank you so much for the insightful session. The question Chetan has is, how can organizations ensure that middle managers become cultural carriers rather than cultural blockers?
Yeah, that's the segment that I feel has been impacted most through coaching, because middle managers have been put in their positions usually because of their technical prowess. But managing people is a completely different paradigm. So making sure middle management have a intense, comprehensive training program around communication, around people skills, things that were considered soft now are actually determinants for promotion in terms of being able to be good leaders. So when it comes to middle managers, really coaching them around empathy, psychological safety, active listening to be able to be champions for their team.
Great. Thank you, Chetan, and thanks, Neelam. I put another one there. Obviously, organizations often focus on business continuity first, but from a well-being perspective, other than, I guess, gratitude, what would be one simple but powerful action for HR leaders to implement right away in terms of employee emotionally and psychologically?
That's an excellent question. Actually, I just got off as like a long seminar around this. How do we really create integrative um, tools so that everyone can benefit? Because this is industry agnostic. We are human beings, right? It doesn't matter what we're working towards. It doesn't matter what line of work we're in. We still have the same emotional infrastructure, which will affect our energy management, which will affect our job performance. So coming back to the nervous system becomes so critical. So I'm working with a company at the moment where we've got well-being champions. And it's a simple 2-minute breathwork exercise to regulate nervous systems. When we are regulated as leaders, but also we are sharing the responsibility to the individual to regulate their own nervous systems, then we come to work with this feeling of clarity and calm. Otherwise, we are coming to work and showing up being very emotionally reactive. When we're coming from that reactivity, generally that's when things go south. So a simple breath work, breathing in for 4 counts, breathing out for 8 counts, and switching on the parasympathetic nervous system, switching on that relaxation so that we can recenter intentionally, especially when there's so much stimuli coming at us.
Thanks, Neelam. I'm familiar with the box breathing technique, so I use that quite regularly, which is obviously in the rhythm of 4. Breathe in 4.
Yes. Yeah, box breathing is great. It helps to balance energy. The breath in activates our energy, and the breath out relaxes our energy. So in a time like this where we're already on high alert, we actually want to focus more on the exhalations to help to relax the nervous system, which is why you're inhaling and then you're exhaling for twice as long.
Fantastic. Anisha has shared, in this challenging times, there will be companies taking tough decisions like layoffs. What will you advise to leaders on how to maintain the culture during and after the redundancies are done?
Yeah, this is such a pointed question. I think this in this scenario, we don't need to let go of our humanity. We can still be empathetic. We can still validate emotion and yet make hard decisions, but with kindness to say, yeah, this is a really tough decision for me. I'm sure it's tough for all of us. We're all going through such upheaval. Show that kindness. Show, okay, here, maybe, obviously budget is a consideration, but maybe say, I'll put you in touch with a few people who maybe you can have a learning discussion with, or a connection, or a networking event. We can show that kindness, but still have empathy and clarity work hand in hand. It doesn't mean that just because we're kind, we're pushovers. We have to take critical decisions for the business too.
Thank you, Anisha, and thank you, Neelam. Aruma, let me see if I can unmute you. Lena, yeah, go ahead. Aruma.
Hi, thank you so much. It's very insightful. Actually, mine was linked a little bit to Gautam's next question about the role of well-being and how it's evolving. Given that we've kind of gone through a few upheavals in the recent few years, right, with the pandemic, with the floods, and lots of having to readjust, realign, are you seeing well-being becoming more front and center, and therefore it's a positive forward journey, or is it still happening in bits and bobs, in fits and starts?
Yeah, that's a great question. So what I've been seeing is that I think over the last year, it's starting to become a strategic priority. So, the firms I work with, we work on a 3-year commitment versus, okay, come and do a wellness talk and I'll see you next year at Global Mental Health Day or something. So I think they're understanding, in order to really affect change, consistency and commitment is very important. And I think this is also echoed by the government of the UAE, putting well-being and mental health as a priority and as a goal for 2030. So companies are starting to see this as a strategic advantage rather than a nice to have.
Great. We have one more from Chetan. Thanks, Aruma. Neelam, apart from reward systems, what strategies can organizations use to ensure employees feel they are progressing in their roles rather than simply working day to day?
Yeah. I think that, honestly, that's where L&D shines. That's where having that feeling that you're growing, you're being invested as a human being, as a person. I've gone through a course and now I'm so much more confident to speak in public. I'm growing as an individual rather than just being able to fine-tune a cog in a wheel, and especially as millennials and Gen Z, that's what they're looking for. A sense of purpose is a sense of self-development. So now, before, as I said, it wasn't the responsibility of an employer, but now more and more so, it's a measure of loyalty. It's a measure of job satisfaction, where people are feeling that they are being invested into, where they're growing in a multitude of aspects.
Fantastic. Thanks, Neelam. Did I miss? There one from Mehul? Yes. From an organizational perspective, how do you see well-being initiatives being measured for ROI from an investment commitment perspective? And what are some quantifiable impact KPIs being tracked for well-being initiatives across different industries?
So at the moment, I think it's still quite qualitative, to be honest, in terms of just how people are feeling. It starts to really shift. That's why the studies were much longer term. A lot of the time, companies are like, I want this in ROI in the next quarter. It's not, it's like telling a seed that it has to be a tree in the next month. It takes time to engender and really have that cascading effect. But what we've been seeing is greater decision making, much clearer, much greater sense of collaboration as well, in terms of lowering those toxic environments where there's a lot of misunderstanding or shirking of credit, being able to share that credit and really be able to lift employees in terms of their promotion and in terms of their performance. So at the moment, I would say it is quite qualitative, but as things are getting further, they're starting to see the business parameters. I work with insurance agents where they're seeing the claims of their policies get lower because so many of the claims are related to stress. And WHO says 90% of all illnesses are stress related. So if we lower that lever of stress, and then immediately they're lowering their expenditure around insurance claims.
Great. Thank you so much, Neelam. Another one, and so thank you, Mehul, and thanks, Chetan. One more question from Mehul. And he thanks for the response. And any specific research work that you know of that has studied short-term and long-term quantitative and qualitative impact on various organization KPIs?
I know that Deloitte has done a few studies, Gallup surveys. I think Forbes and Harvard Business Review have a few research studies in terms of the longest standing ones. I think Gallup generally takes a much broader picture, but I'll definitely send over some sources.
Great. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much, Neelam. Just wait a couple of minutes in case there's any other questions that come up before we wrap up. But for me, I'd like to share, quick thought from my side in terms of current times is there's a book which I'd read called The Success Principles by Jack Canfield. And one of his principles in the book is called E plus R equals O, which is event plus response equals outcome. And to me, we have no control, as we know, of the events that are going on now and many events that take place in our lives, whether they're successful ones, difficult ones, challenging ones, emotional, relationships, business, health, money, multiple challenges. But what we do have control of, easier said than done, but we have in control of how do we respond to the events, because how we respond to these events will determine the outcomes that we have, both personally, as individuals, as with our families, and obviously our businesses and professionals. So I really encourage you to look this up and read that particular principle, E+R=O. I think it can add tremendous value into how you respond, because let's focus on what we can do in our lives as opposed to what we can't do, and use our time wisely. Another great book was called Yes Attitude by Jeffrey Gitomer, which was gifted to me through the previous recession. And he actually challenged me for 30 days not to read the newspaper, not to watch any news. The moment we read the newspaper or watch the news, by default, we consume that. It comes and becomes a part of our DNA. If it's a part of our DNA, we give others around us what feelings we have inside us. So I know it's easier said than done, but you can see this, the news outside of the country is impacting the kind of messages we're receiving. So if we can share positivity, resilience, and focus on what's in our control, I'm sure we can have better outcomes. And my dad's famous words, he always reminds me, he's on the call, on the webinar, he says, "This too shall pass." So I hope and pray that the coming days are better, and we pray for peace. Thank you, Neelam. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for your thoughtful insights and for reminding us that well-being is not just a program, it's a leadership responsibility. In times of uncertainty, the role of HR becomes even more important, because it's in creating workplaces where people feel supported, resilient, and able to perform at their best despite the challenges. On behalf of NHRD Dubai chapter, thank you all for joining us today. Thank you, Neelam, and we'll be in touch.
Absolutely. No, it was such a pleasure. And honestly, it's exactly that, when we can reframe the struggle into a strength. So many of the times we've looked back and been in a really difficult position, but that's when we rose to shine, and so I'm sure this is only teaching us more capabilities, where we can come together and reprioritize what really matters.
Fantastic. On behalf of the NHRD, thank you very much. Have a great evening. Thank you, Neelam.
Thank you.
All the best. Thank you.